Good day, everyone. It's good to be back. I'm Loree Bischoff, and I'm here with Lauren Young for another episode of We're Talking Shift. Today, we're going to talk about why dinner matters. I happen to think dinner is actually the most important meal of the day as opposed to breakfast. I know that's counter to what all of the experts tell us, but that's my take. Anyway, we're going to dive into that. But Lauren, just curious, since we're diving into dinner, what did you guys have for dinner last night?
Yikes, Lori. I did not have dinner last night. I had chaos for dinner last night.
Wow.
Um, yes, it was one of those nights where everyone's kind of fending for themselves. And so one of my children opted for a bowl of cereal, and then she got hungry again later and prepared a turkey and cheese sandwich. So
Okay, fair.
quite quite the balanced meal there, I guess. Sister, however, decided she wanted ramen noodles, Old Faithful.
Mm,
You know,
mm-hmm,
the sodium-packed
mm-hmm.
comfort food that we try to avoid as much as possible. Happens to be one of her favorites.
Yeah, I think ramen noodles has been pretty much everyone's favorite, just about everyone at one point in time in their life. I grew up eating
Only the chicken
just
flavor.
oh, absolutely. The others, I don't even know why they bother. I don't know how you could make something so good in one package and almost the identical thing in another, and it can be so horribly wrong. But yeah, just the chicken. We grew up on that. My sister and I did. My kids had their fair share of ramen noodles as well. It was a cheap, quick, easy standby, and it's something that a 5-year-old could make themselves. So there's that. Uh,
There's
I don't know
that.
what.
She did have to climb on the countertop to reach the microwave, but all's well that ends well.
Ah, okay. So they're even mic'd. See, we actually at least made them sort of home cooked and put them in a pan on the stove. But you know what? I don't know what those noodles are made of. I don't actually think they're real noodles. So I'm very suspicious. I really don't think it matters where you cook those things. I think they're just as nasty coming from the mic as they are out of a saucepan. But yeah, I'm very suspicious of that. I don't know what's in them. I don't trust it at all. They last forever and they're so freaking cheap that cannot possibly be real food. Anyway, everyone's been there.
But they're so good.
They were good. They're delicious. So,
It was just a crazy busy day for me, Lori, and I was not prepared and equipped with a plan. But how was dinner at your house
dinner at my house
last
was
night?
good. Eric and I have a custom, basically a ritual of every morning when we're having our coffee, we go, all right, what are we doing for dinner tonight? So we have the day to make sure that we have a plan. That way, if we need to prep anything or pick something up, we make sure we get that taken care of so that we know what we're doing and we can follow through on the plan. Yesterday, of course, we were both really busy as well. And fortunately, we have leftovers, which I'm a huge fan of. I love leftovers. We cook at home. We rarely eat out unless we're traveling, and that's just, you don't really have a choice. Otherwise, we cook at home. The other thing, as far as being prepared, is we are huge fans of canned mackerel. I know most people are like, "What?" It's like, it's in the aisle where your canned tuna is and your canned sardines and your canned anchovies and all your canned fish, right? We like mackerel. We love it. It's literally one of the healthiest fish on the planet that a person can eat. It's full of healthy omega-3s. And the brand that we get is in olive oil, so it's not in a crappy, shitty seed oil. So we literally probably have 30 cans of that in our cabinet as we speak. It's a great go-to.
Wow.
And so when we both said, I don't know, I don't feel like trying to prepare anything. We've got some leftovers. Oh, and we've got mackerel. So great, perfect. I made myself a salad, which I do every single night because I'm just a salad junkie. So I had a salad, and then I opened up a can of mackerel. I did cook up a little bit of brown rice, and I mixed it up, threw some scallions in there, and it was delicious, healthy, and that was my dinner. So it was a no fuss, no muss dinner. I think Eric had a leftover half of a steak, and then he also he didn't get his quite as protein content in from the half of a steak, so he also had some mackerel, which he mixed up with some chopped up hard boiled eggs. Threw some soy sauce on there. It was very Asian-y, and he had that for dinner. So even though we did not have a big, preparation of anything, what we threw together was still super healthy, quick, easy. We both loved it. Very satisfying. We checked all the boxes. So, it's good to have a plan, but it's always good to have something as a backup that's quick and easy, healthier than ramen noodles, but still accessible in a hurry, so that when you have a day like you did or like we did, and nobody feels like starting from scratch and cooking a meal, it is what it is. You just open up something quick and easy, and you're good. It doesn't have to be, sometimes it's wonderful to have a meal that is just so satisfying. You love the food. It's your favorite side dish or your favorite whatever. It's, a family tradition or whatever it is. That's great. And it just, it satiates you, and your taste buds are happy, and you're mentally and psychologically, oh, I love this so much. And then sometimes you just got to go, you know what? I don't have time to check all those boxes. The only box I need to check is fuel right now. So what's the best kind of
Right.
fuel I can have available in a hurry? And there you go. That's what you have. So that's what we do. And that way we're never stuck going, oh no, all that we have is a package of ramen noodles, which would never happen in my house because I haven't bought ramen noodles in 40 years. But still, you know what I'm saying?
I do. I actually went a while without buying the ramen noodles too. And my one child who just loves them, she was like, "Are you not grocery shopping anymore? We haven't had ramen in a while." And I'm like, "We've been having real groceries. What are you talking
See, there's a pattern that's already been laid with
about?"
them. Those poor children actually think ramen noodles is real food. And if there's none in the house, that mom has not done her job and gone to the damn store. What the heck, mom?
This this child loves her ramen, and it's hard for me to blame her because I feel like the habits we form in childhood can follow us for a lifetime, and I've noticed they are twins, and one of them definitely has already started forming some unhealthy habits
Ah,
versus the other one
mhm.
she doesn't have a sweet tooth. She's not into candy. She really prefers to drink water versus anything else. I'm like, how have we created such different habits in nearly identical children who are raised in the same household?
Mhm.
How has this come to be?
Mhm.
So I'm a little concerned now
Mhm.
about letting one child's preferences
Mhm.
become lifelong habits that are not going to set her up for wellness in the future.
Sure. Well, that's something definitely to be concerned about. I'm just curious. I know the girls are twins. Are they identical twins or fraternal?
They're not identical
Okay.
twins.
So even though they're twins, they're yeah, they're like they came out at totally different times. Yes. Okay.
Yes, yes. However, as far as their developmental stages and their relative sizes and weights, they've always had the same portion sizes because they're the same
Mm.
age and weight
Mm.
and, all of those kinds of things. So for a long time, they were kind of eating the same things. There was a period of time where we could go to a restaurant and they would split an entree
Mhm.
right down the middle. And
Mhm.
it's as if I'm only having to feed one kid.
Mhm.
But we have gotten to the point now where everyone's tastes are so very different, and I'm just puzzled as to how we got here.
Yeah. Well, I think that the fact that their tastes are different isn't unusual in siblings. I mean, I had the same experience, very similar experience, I should say, with our son and daughter, who are obviously, one's male, one's female, and they're 18 months apart. When they were little, pretty similar. Although our son always had a little bit more of a adventurous palate for sure, but they would eat the same things. But as they got a little bit older, they really, you know, diverged into very specific likes and dislikes. Still overlap, but then major differences. All right. So that's not unusual in siblings at all. Not at all. But I would say, so there's kind of two things here that we want to, I would say, dive into. So one would be, why the dinner routine even matters. Is that important? The other would be what I like to call standards. So,
Mm.
Your concern is one going to be affecting the other? Why are they so different? And I think and you're concerned about one making more maybe poor choices. Yeah.
I guess my concern is what have I done to influence each of them?
Mm-hmm.
Because clearly I've influenced them differently. Or is this more of a nature versus nurture kind of thing? And I need to be influencing differently
Yeah.
to get different outcomes
Yeah.
for each
So it's a
one.
little bit of both, but I think the influence plays a major role because your kids eating lifestyle and the routines are definitely shaped by what you the patterns you create, the rituals you create, and what you allow to happen as the parent.
Mhm.
So as parents allow their young kids to have more and more and more choice over what they are going to eat or not eat, naturally now you're setting a standard that a young child that doesn't really understand the basics of why you should eat and should not eat certain things or certain quantities of things. They don't know. They don't understand that.
Mhm.
They just want what they want, right? So
That's
if
right.
you in order to get yourself out of the position of having to have a power struggle, it's easy for parents to fall into, okay, just eat this, just eat what you want, even if it's not something that's healthy or nutritious, right? And we've all fallen prey to that too. But I think the main thing is, first of all, I think for the parent, understanding why dinner matters seriously, and why it plays a really important role in supporting a strong family unit. So whether your family unit is one parent and one kid, or two parents and four kids, whatever that unit is, it is. So when you have a meal together, and typically, that's usually likely going to be dinner because everyone's, running in different directions during the day. So that's why we're going to refer to this at dinner, but it could be any meal. But when you have a routine of dinner together, it actually fosters the connection, the communication, and a sense of belonging for the children within the family unit. So it strengthens the family bonds. All right. So to not be in the habit of most of the time having dinner together, you're missing out on an opportunity. And that sense of belonging is critically important for kids in a family. It's a box you really need to make sure you're checking, that they feel like they have belonging and significance in the family unit. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to freaking sit down with your kids and have a meal with them. It's not
Mhm.
complicated. So the other thing is that to have that time, naturally, that's going to encourage better communication, right? It provides a natural setting for conversations and listening to them and asking them questions and letting them talk to you and ask you questions. I remember one of I don't have a lot of specific memories like, oh, I remember that one dinner where we all talked about, I don't remember specifics like that, but I do have fond memories of family meal gatherings. It was
Mhm.
comfortable, it was ritualistic, and it was just something you did. And in hindsight, I can see how that was really important and checked some of those important boxes emotionally for like my sister and I. So I think that it's a time also. Here's what I remember. I remember being able to at even just observe the conversation going on between the adults. So whether it was my parents or maybe it was my grandparents or family gatherings and aunts and uncles, but being able to be privy to, as a child, to watch and listen to the interactions going on of how the adults were communicating with each other is that's an influence as well. So hopefully those are good ones. You don't you want good influences there, but those were fond memories for me. Just the whole idea of family meals together and get-togethers that always included, holidays, birthdays, whatever. It's always food is involved, right? And there's a reason for that
Absolutely.
too, which we'll get to in a second. But so the kids naturally, there's going to be a higher sense of self-esteem because they feel like they're an integral part of a unit, something greater than just
Mhm.
themselves. And it's just a good reinforcement of family values and traditions. You're saying we value this time with just us. This is what we do. No phones at the table, and we're just actually going to talk to each other like people did before there were phones, right? Right. But the thing before we move on to having standards, but the thing I think it's really important to realize is that there's a really, really deep, that's lasted forever, a deep significance of communal eating that spans human history. It's rooted in survival and bonding. I mean, from early human tribes that gathered to share food, and it strengthened the group cohesion. It was really essential for survival, right? It's, again, kind of back to even then, it was a symbol of unity and belonging. So that sense of inclusion that happens is really important, especially for kids. You want to feel like you're a meaningful part of the family unit. And that's what, that whole idea of breaking bread together, right? It means you're part of the circle. So I can't stress how important that is. But you're creating a good ritual. And, if you are religious or spiritual, it's a time to maybe just remind them that, hey, we could say grace together and everyone can take a turn. If that's part of your thing, or if it's not a religious thing, maybe it's just, hey, what great thing happened for you today? What was the best thing in your day? So it's an opportunity to have your kids focus on the good things. What are we grateful
Mhm.
for? What good things happened? What were you excited about? Whatever. So it's a perfect setting to just have this wonderful exchange and interaction with your kids for all of those reasons, and the same reasons that it's been happening, since the beginning of human history. It matters.
I agree.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, my dad would get home from work. It was like 6 o'clock every night. He was walking through the door, and that's when it was dinner time. And it just felt like 6 p.m. was like whatever else is going on is kind of done or paused for a while. And we're all just kind of recentered back at the dinner table and talking about our days. And like you were saying, if everyone has an opportunity to share something, I think you spend at least a portion of your day kind of looking for that thing. What am I going to share this evening at the dinner table? What did I learn
Mhm.
today? Is something that my girls and I like to discuss around the dinner table. So I hope that when they're at school, maybe something sparks in those minds and says, hey, this is what I'm going to talk about tonight at dinner. Okay, this is what I've learned today.
Yeah.
Or to be looking for the positive that you can share later.
Yeah, yeah. And also, it's time for them, if there's something that's bothering them that they're stressed about or worried about, that's also the time to say, is there something, anything going on with anyone that's causing you a little bit of worry? And let's talk about that and how we handle that. So it also gives them permission to not sort of shut down and stuff things inside that they think maybe nobody wants to hear about or it's unimportant or whatever. That's the time also to say, is there anything up for anybody that is bothering you? Let's talk about that too. So,
Right.
so
It's kind of an open
yeah.
forum rather than a child having to come say, "Hey, mom, I need to talk to you about something." They already know
Mhm,
we're going to be having this conversation,
mhm.
at dinner.
Yeah.
That's a good time for me to approach this thing. And there's something about a plate of beautiful food in front of you that makes most things a little bit easier to talk about.
I agree. Oh, there's a lot of good things that can happen over a plate of beautiful food, as you say. I love pretty food. And you can even make ramen noodles look beautiful if you just put a little bit of effort into it, if that's what you're stuck
You
with.
sure can.
but but
I agree. Put the egg on top.
yes. So, which would be actually great because at least you're getting something healthy in them too, right?
Right.
But it's a time though. Here's the thing. I think setting standards is really important, and I don't mean that you have to be super extreme, but let's start with patterns. First of all, some people mistakenly fall into that habit of using food as a coping mechanism or a distraction. In other words, a state changer. And this is very common. We've probably all done it. But if somebody is having a highly stressful day, or they're in a bit of a funk or a depressed state, people have a tendency, many, to, in order to change that state of mind, will go to food. It can be, it becomes used as a coping mechanism. It can be just a distraction, just something to shift you out of one state of mind and into another, which is not obviously a good thing. You don't want to get into the habit of using food as a state changer, because typically the food you go to is not the healthiest. Typically you're not going to go and have a plate of hummus as your go-to. People are going for the things,
Ramen.
they're going for ramen, or they're going for ice cream, or they're going for a bag of chips. And it's just the easy, salty, kind of addictive things that you really don't want to become addicted to. So you don't want to be demonstrating that for your kids either, and you don't want to be using it as a distraction for them. If they're wanting, bugging you to do something that you just can't do right now, or you're not interested in doing, and you go, how about instead we go have some have a cupcake or a muffin? Not good, right?
Right. Right. You bring up something, kind of tangentially related to what we're talking about. I have tried to really avoid rewarding my
Mhm.
children with
Yeah.
foods. And that's hard. It's very hard to wrap your mind around other ideas when I think we're all really conditioned to food being an acceptable reward for just about anything.
Oh, absolutely. All of advertising wants you to feel like you should reward yourself with food, and sometimes it's generational. It's passed down from your parents or grandparents, and that's just a habit that they've been in, and that's what you've learned, and it's an easy thing to fall into. But yeah, it's not good. It's the same thing. You're using it for something where, in place of something that would be a healthier, like mentally healthier, not just physically, emotionally healthier choice. So you have to be careful to not use that as a reward for your kids. And, it could be subtle. Maybe it's really common. Let's say your kids are in sports, and you've just gone to whatever their sports event is, and they or their team won the big championship, and you're all right, we're going out for ice cream. So now it feels like okay, that's the reward, right? But there's a subtle difference between going, okay, we're going to celebrate and we're going to do something fun, like a treat that we don't normally do. So there's a celebration, which I think should be, I think there should be exceptions to the rules, right? But what you don't want to, the difference would be, okay, if you work really hard and you get an A on this test, you get to go, have the reward. The food is the reward, because the reward should be in the accomplishment itself, not I'm going to dangle a carrot in front of you, or a muffin, or a candy bar, or a malt, right? if you do this. So there's the distinction. So yeah,
Yes.
you have to look at as the parent, and this is, whether even if you're not a parent, this is just for everybody. What kind of standards have you set for yourself? I mean, do you actually have any standards and patterns and habits? Or are you just winging it every day? What are your rules? Do your kids know? Do you have any rules for yourself? What's off limits? What's the standard rule and what are the exceptions to the rule? So that's something that I think is really important to think about, and it's important to teach your kids. Yes, this is what we do. This is our eating lifestyle 80% of the time, or whatever it is. And then maybe 20% of the time we have an exception to the rule. So our standards when our kids were growing up was we cooked dinner at home almost every night. Friday night was pizza night because that was also date night. So mom and dad go out and grandma is home with you guys. And yeah, order pizza, have a ball, make it easy. Saturday or Sunday, we would go a family dinner out. And then that's it. The other 5 days of the week, though, are pretty much we're eating healthy, we're cooking at home. So those were our standards, and those were the rituals we had in place to support the standards. That way, everyone knows this is just what we do. This is setting up a good pattern for them. This is letting them understand that there are certain rules that are in place for your benefit, but they're not so strict that you can't, have some exceptions to the rules when it's appropriate or when you decide it's, that's what you want to do. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, and I feel like I grew up in a similar scenario, but I've been a single mother. I've been, you know, a person who worked untraditional hours. I'm now in a relationship with a person who works terrible hours, and I feel it's a little bit harder for us to find the rhythm here with family dinners. Do you have any suggestions there? And I will say my mom did a really great job. Part of it is that she's a good cook and she enjoys cooking,
Mm-hmm.
but she was always really diligent about weekend breakfasts as well.
Mm-hmm.
We would kind of wake up to the sizzling bacon and the smell of gravy and biscuits, and um she did a great job with
Yeah.
that, but that's just another one that I just can't get into the routine.
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, are you usually there for dinner with the girls?
I am, except we're getting to the point now with the girls where this one has tutoring twice a week and we are wanting to go back to soccer and they'll have practices. And so I'm trying to avoid that level of hectic chaos, but I still want them to have a childhood. So,
Mm-hmm.
typically it is me and the girls for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
But there are exceptions to that as well.
Yeah. I mean, everybody's juggling stuff, and you're doing the best you can. I would say that, on the days that you can be home having dinner, then make it a routine, a ritual. And maybe sometimes it's not all four of you. Maybe most of the time it's just you and the girls, but then that's what it is. So when it's just the three of you, then that's what you do. And great bonus when all four of you are there at the same time. But just because one can't be there doesn't mean that the other three should not have a routine, right?
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. I need to be better about that because I tend to sometimes I can get in an all or nothing type of mindset
Mhm.
where it's, well, if I'm not cooking for him and these kids are just as pleased with, ramen and a sandwich, then why am I cooking at all? And that's not fair to any of us.
I don't know about this all or nothing situation. We need to maybe get a handle on that, Lauren. I mean,
It's a struggle. I do the all or nothing thing. Another part of that I think too is just um and this is an issue I think for parents currently that wasn't really an issue before, and we've created it. I won't say that we haven't, but we try to cater to what each person prefers to eat.
mm,
And when I was a kid, if mom was making something and it wasn't what I wanted, like too damn bad. I guess you'll eat at breakfast tomorrow,
yeah.
but in today's day and age, it's very hard to tell your kid to go to bed hungry. So we're short order cooks, every one of us.
Well, why does this day and age have to affect that routine or that standard that your mom had?
I wish I knew. I truly think that my mom just is a badass. And my mom had 4 kids, and she was cooking one meal, and if one person didn't like it, it is what it is. For me, though, I'm like, well, especially for a while when it was just the 3 of us, it's like, well, it's not that difficult for me to just appease everybody, and, you know, the reality is that that's probably just not the best thing to do. But here I am. I've set this standard
Yeah,
as you talked about,
exactly.
and I've
Yeah.
yeah,
So you've set a
shot
precedent.
myself in the foot.
Yeah. You've set a precedent
Right.
of of trying to appease everybody. So you've done this to yourself, right? Um,
Well, if it isn't the consequences of my action.
yeah. So this is what right. Here we are. So, you can either keep going down this path. That's your choice. Or you can try to at least mitigate some of that and start including them in helping to plan some meals, right? Teach them what they're eating. Tell them why something is healthy or isn't healthy, how that benefits them. I think that so many people don't take the opportunity to teach their kids about food and what they're eating and why they're eating it. It's just, here, you're hungry, eat this. And now, good, that's past until the next time somebody's hungry. But you're missing a big opportunity. And at at pretty young ages, your kids are able to participate to some degree. Now, 9-year-olds can do stuff. I mean, involve them. Teach them how to read a label. Why don't we eat foods loaded with sugar all day, every day? Because it's harmful to our bodies, right? Why don't we eat fried food every day? Because that's harmful too. Once in a while, it's probably not a big deal. But daily, we don't do that. And here's why. Why do we eat fruits and veggies every day as much as possible? Because there's things in there our bodies do need. I mean, it doesn't really take a nutritionist or a dietitian to explain some fundamentals to kids about food. And if you don't know, then look it up, right? Just do 5 minutes of research on your phone and you'll have something meaningful to share with your kid. So, and then having them help, they should be able to contribute, whether it's setting the table or, popping something in the oven or whatever it is. Include them, though. Include them in ideas. I think that that's a big thing. Saying, okay, let's have some fun with this and start out with like 2 days a week. You guys come up with some ideas and let's all make something that you think would be really fun. And let's make sure it falls into the healthy category. How do we find that out? Well, we look online, right? And we just start getting them involved. And I think that that is a good way to slowly, without making it really obvious, to start changing your standards a little bit and raising them, right?
Valid.
Yeah.
We can do that.
Yeah. Obviously, we don't use food, like we talked about, as rewards or punishment. I mean, if you're making a meal and let's say there's 2 or 3 items, maybe you have a main dish, a side dish, and an appetizer or whatever you do. And if one kid doesn't like one part of that meal, then they can just eat more of what else is available. So they don't have to go to bed hungry. That does seem a little bit extreme, but also you limit their choices. Your kitchen shouldn't be an all-night buffet. I mean, right? And neither should dinner. It shouldn't be like, okay, here's the menu. What do you guys want? Choose. And then you're trying to appease everybody, as you say. That's a little, I don't know. It just makes life harder for you and it's unnecessary. So, and the thing is, about you said one of the twins maybe making more unhealthy choices than the other. So that's why it's important to be educating without having to talk about like body image things. You don't have to say, sweetie, if you keep eating all of this stuff with sugar, all of this stuff with bad fats, or, all of these excessive carbohydrates, whatever it is that you feel is the red flag going on. You don't have to say this is going to make you fat. This is going to make you, not able to do well at the sports that you want to do well in. Whatever it is, what you do is you just talk about health. This is about the health of the body. And the appearance then will take care of itself. If you just get them, aware that there's a reason the body needs certain fuel, and there's a reason it needs to stay away from certain foods that aren't really fuel. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. That seems really obvious when you say it that way. But they are coming to the age where they're, going to be preteens. And I know that they're starting to compare their bodies to each other, which again, that could be a twin thing. Maybe it's a sister thing.
Mhm.
Um, but I know how that feels. And at 9 years old, that just is crazy to me. We're not at the age where I'm ready to talk about appearance and, why we choose certain nutritional values based on what we're going to look
Mhm.
like. This is crazy to
Mhm.
me. So, yeah, when you say it in those words, it seems obvious and certainly optimal, but we are definitely getting to a place where if I don't kind of figure out my plan of attack on that, it's going to sneak up on me.
Yeah.
It's starting to.
Yeah, it is. So you need to start now because it's already snuck up on you. It's already in your
Mhm.
life. It's already there.
Right.
It's arrived. So I would strongly suggest that you start sort of gamifying this, if you will, and somehow making this fun. Like, let's make lists together. Let's find the healthier things. Let's find healthier treats. Let them help choose menus, but they have to pick from the healthy list. So maybe together you make a list of foods that fall into the healthy category, and the other lists that fall into the exception to the rule category that are treats for once in a while, and let them participate in that, and then challenge them to discover maybe some healthy things that you're not even aware of, right? So if you kind of just come up with ways that seem like it might be fun for them, but they're contributing, they're learning just by the nature of what you're doing, not because you're saying, okay, sit down, we're going to, open this textbook and learn about nutrients and minerals and vitamins. I mean, yeah, they're not going to be down for that, but you can do this in a different way. And that's just by involving them and then explaining some pretty basics to them, and focus on the health, not the appearances, right?
Absolutely. I want to take this opportunity since you said some healthy things we may not be aware of. You have a cookbook, Lori, and you
Oh, God.
sent a link to this to me many years ago. And there's one recipe in it that I still go back to all the time.
Really?
It was my
What
favorite.
one?
Plenty of good ones. This one was the bison and cabbage.
Oh,
And when I tell you I had never had bison or cabbage in my life, and that recipe just jumped out at me and became one of my favorites.
nice.
So
Mhm.
we'll link to that in our show
Okay,
notes so
yeah,
everyone else
yeah.
can try
And
it.
I mean, it's not really a cookbook. It's a healthy eating, I guess. It's called the Food Print Plan. So yeah, it's helping people develop what that plan looks like for them. And there's all kinds of great coaching tools and methodologies in there to help everyone. And then it does include a few recipes in each category to maybe help people kind of get started with some things. So that's funny. I forgot about that. It was so long ago. I guess it is still on
I
the
know. Well,
website.
I love the food print plan. It broke me out of a very long pattern of like
Mm.
chicken breast and fish,
Mhm.
those lean meats that were all
Mhm.
who would have thought bison
Mhm.
in a healthy meal? But it was great. It was
Well,
excellent.
yeah, it's not any different than if you were to use beef. It's just bison, and I mean, you can pretty much get that anywhere these days. I mean, Walmart sells bison, so
Mhm.
yeah, it's just something different, and why not? So thanks for bringing that up. I totally forgot I even had that. It's been so long, but that's fun. There are a few good recipes in there, but yeah,
Definitely.
yeah, it's on the website. But anyway, good stuff. I mean, do you think you got enough things to sort of think about and start implementing with yourself or your girls?
I certainly have a starting point. I will say I recently implemented, I'm not going to call it out by name, but a specific fast food joint that one of my daughters, I bet you can guess which one, really
Mm.
loves. We have just completely stopped going to that specific fast food place. And it wasn't because she loves it. Obviously, that would be terrible. But the location nearest to us just we had a bad experience. And I said, I'm not going there ever
Mm.
again. Don't ask me. The answer is no. And it's been pretty easy to break that habit for her.
Okay.
So maybe it's not as difficult as my mind is making it out to be.
Mhm.
I've also noticed when I've tried new recipes, uh, of course, I have to they're not super dense in vegetables. I have to keep in mind that these are children and their palates are not exactly what mine are. So we'll do, you know, like a chicken dish with the vegetable on the
Sure.
side. They seem to be very receptive to newer recipes lately.
Mhm.
So maybe I should seize the opportunity for growth
Mm.
and try to involve them and include them on those
Yeah,
choices.
they have some really cute age appropriate cookbooks for kids out there. I got one for my kids when they were young, probably about the age yours are. And so they could look through there and pick something out that they thought would be fun to try, and then we could go to the store, shop together, get those ingredients, and then they can participate in making it. So I think, letting them be part of the process is is fun, and they learn. And they learn that they need to understand how to feed themselves.
Mhm.
They need to understand how to get familiar with the kitchen, and how to measure things. That 9 years old is totally ready for that. Just
Lest they go to college and only know how to prepare ramen.
Yeah, well, college students aren't even doing that anymore. They just have a card with on it, and they go to the wherever the cafeteria is, where a lot of them now have, 14 different. It's like going to a food court. They just buy what they need, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just look
Absolutely.
on Venmo. You can see all of the parents that are shuttling their kids' money to cover their food at the college food court.
My goodness. Yes, I remember actually I remember when I went to college, I was absolutely stoked because there was Chick-fil-A, Taco Bell, and Pizza Hut. And any combination of those 3 in one meal was like, "Are you kidding me? This is
The mother
glorious," but
load.
it's not. It's
Yeah.
it wasn't a good thing.
No, but we live and learn. I don't know. When we grew up, going to fast food was a rare treat. So my
Mhm.
mom worked part time. So if she happened to work on a Saturday, that's when we got to have the treat, and my dad would take us to McDonald's. So my sister and I got to have McDonald's, and that was like a rare treat once in a while. That's it. And now, that's normal for people to have fast food every day. They pick it up on their way home for dinner, and that's what they're feeding their families, because it's
Mhm.
convenient. But the health
I've been in that
ramifications,
cycle before
yeah,
too.
yeah. I
Mhm.
mean, once in a while, it's not probably too harmful, but as a lifestyle, it's going to bite you in the ass. Absolutely. And you're setting your kids up for problems earlier on in life, health issues. So you really want to try to get some sort of a routine in there and manage that as best you can. So, anyway, really just plan ahead, set some standards, the rules and the exceptions to the rules. Um, and avoid, though, super restrictive diets, especially if you have one that you're feeling like they're starting to be concerned about body image, or, even for yourself. Just super restrictive usually ends up, you know, coming back to bite people. So I don't know that, unless you have a serious condition, that you need to be ultra restrictive. There's too many wonderful things out there that it's nice to experience once in a while.
Bison.
Like
Who would
bison.
have
Yeah,
guessed?
yeah. So include your kids if you have them in the process, and teach them as they go. Be a good role model, though. You lead by example. It always comes back to that. They're watching what you do and how you do it, and that's what is being downloaded as this is the way we do things. Period. So, and I think the main thing is, though, to me, recognizing the gift of breaking bread together for this brief period of time that you have a family unit, that time is fleeting. So really being grateful for that and the opportunity you have to do that, that's a really big thing. And if all it is today is freaking ramen noodles, then at least sit down and do it together and have meaningful family time.
I love that perspective, Lori. You know, we're for the most part, we're all going to eat dinner anyway. The time is going to pass. Let's just sit down and do it
Yeah.
together. I agree. Thank you for supporting the podcast. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe, and share. And don't forget, the conversation is not over. Join our group on Facebook to share your thoughts on today's topics. Tell us what you're planning to have for dinner. And if you happen to have any great recipes that might be lurking under somebody else's radar, like bison and cabbage, go ahead and share those with us in the group as well. Lori, you have it was life changing to break out of the chicken breast and fish routine.
Awesome. Well, I'm gonna have to look back at that book too, and see what I've forgotten about. It's been so long. So anyway, thanks for joining us, everyone. And until next week, go make some meals, plan some meals, and make some epic shift happen in your lives. See ya.